A single rifle crack splits the frozen silence of the birch forest. Snow explodes in a puff near Gefreiter Karl Weber's boot as he freezes mid-step, heart slamming against his ribs. Another crack closer this time, and the man 10 meters ahead drops without a sound, a neat red hole blooming in his forehead. No muzzle flash. No enemy in sight, just the endless white trees staring back. The platoon scatters, pressing bellies to the snow, rifles sweeping empty air. Breath clouds hang like ghosts. Karl's fingers are numb on the Mauser, eyes burning as he searches for something, anything, to shoot at. Then the whisper spreads down the line, "Sniper." Karl swallows, tasting iron fear. How do you fight a killer you cannot see, who has already chosen you? The word slithers along the line like poison gas, "Sniper." Karl presses his cheek into the snow, the ice crystals biting through the stubble, burning cold against skin already raw from leaks of wind. His breath comes in short, white bursts that betray his position. He knows it, but he can't stop. Around him, the others do the same, helmets low, bodies flat, rifles cradled like infants they're terrified to drop. No one speaks above a murmur. The forest listens. Somewhere to the left, Unteroffizier Braun hisses, "Keep your damned heads down." He's watching. Watching. That's the worst part. Not the shot itself, though God knows the shot is bad enough, but the waiting for it. The knowing that out there, in the white maze of birch trunks and black shadows, a single Russian eye is pressed to a scope. Patient. Calm. Choosing. Karl's fingers ache inside the frozen gloves. He flexes them slowly, feeling the blood crawl back like reluctant recruits. The snow beneath him is soaked through the greatcoat already. He feels the wet chill spreading across his chest, a slow invasion. His boots are worse, leather cracked, socks stiff with old sweat and new melt. Every man here carries the same private agony, toes turning black at the edges, pain that flares with every shift of weight. A low whisper drifts from the next foxhole. They say it's a woman. Karl turns his head just enough to see Gefreiter Hans Becker, face half buried in his collar, eyes wide and shining. A woman? Karl breathes back. Becker nods, barely. Lieutenant heard it from the pioneers. Some bitch from Siberia. Picks off officers first. Never misses. They call her the White Death. The name lands heavy. Karl has heard fragments before, rumors traded like cigarettes in the rear lines, but hearing it here, now, with the body of Feldwebel Richter still cooling 20 meters away, it feels real. Too real. Another voice, farther down, I heard she uses a scope with crosshairs made from human hair. Laughter tries to bubble up, nervous, cracked, but dies instantly. No one wants to make a sound that travels. The forest itself seems to breathe. Wind moves through the branches high above, a soft rushing that masks everything and nothing. Every creak of wood could be a branch settling under snow, or a boot. Every distant snap could be ice cracking, or a twig under a sniper's knee. Karl's mind races despite the cold. He pictures her, because now he can't help it, a shadow in white camouflage, face painted, breath slow and controlled. She has been here for hours, maybe days, lying motionless in a snow grave of her own making, eating snow for water, pissing into a bottle so she doesn't have to move, waiting for the perfect moment when a German head lifts just a fraction too high. He hates her with a sudden, helpless fury, and fears her more. Braun crawls along the line, belly to the ground, dragging his MP40. When he reaches Karl, he drops into the shallow scrape beside him, breath smelling of stale ersatz coffee in fear. "We can't stay pinned forever," Braun mutters. "Company wants us to take the tree line by dusk, clear it for the panzers." Karl stares at him. With her out there? Braun's eyes are bloodshot, the whites yellowed from exhaustion. Orders are orders. We move in sections, bounding over watch. One group lays down fire, the other rushes. Karl almost laughs. Fire at what? Trees? Braun doesn't answer. He just looks away, toward the motionless body of Richter, face down in the snow, one arm flung out as if reaching for something just out of grasp. The light is failing already, the short northern day bleeding out into gray. Soon the shadows will deepen, and the sniper's advantage will grow. Karl feels the claustrophobia of it, the endless white walls of the forest closing in, the sky pressing low and indifferent. There is nowhere to hide that isn't already exposed. No trench deep enough. No armor thick enough against a bullet that comes from silence itself. He thinks of home suddenly, Munich in spring, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery on Skellingstrasse, his mother's voice calling him in from the street. The memory is so sharp it hurts worse than the cold. He wonders if he will ever smell that bread again, or if this forest will be the last thing he ever smells, pine needles, cordite, and the metallic tang of his own terror. Becker whispers again, voice trembling. They say when she kills you, you don't even hear the shot. Just, nothing. Carl closes his eyes for a second. When he opens them, the snow has begun to fall again, soft, fat flakes drifting down like ash from a crematorium. They settle on his lashes, melt, run into his eyes like tears he refuses to shed. Somewhere out in the white, the invisible killer adjusts her scope, waits, breathes, and the elite soldiers of the Wehrmacht, men who marched into Poland, France, the Balkans like gods, lie flat on their bellies in the snow, whispering rumors to keep the darkness at bay, waiting for the next crack that will tell them whose turn it is to die. Braun's whistle shrieks once, sharp, metallic, cutting through the falling snow like a blade. The first section surges up. Boots pound, breath explodes in white clouds, rifles swing toward phantom targets. Carl's group stays low, fingers hooked on triggers, waiting for their turn to leapfrog forward. The MG-34 beside him erupts, a tearing canvas rip that rattles his teeth, brass casings spitting hot into the snow where they hiss and vanish. For a moment it feels almost normal. The old rhythm, fire and movement. The way they crushed the French, the Poles, the Greeks. Superior training, superior will. Carl almost believes it again. Then the crack comes. Clean, dry, separate from everything else. The running point man, young Muller, barely 19, pitches forward as if yanked by an invisible wire. He slides face first into the snow, legs kicking once, twice, then still. No scream, just the sudden absence of his pounding boots. The machine gun stutters into silence. Men freeze halfway out of their scrapes. Another crack. This time the bullet takes Unterfeldwebel Klein through the throat. He drops his rifle, both hands clamping the wound as bright arterial blood pumps between his fingers in rhythmic jets, steaming in the cold air. A wet gurgle escapes, half word, half drowning, and then he topples sideways. The smell hits Carl first, cordite sharp as vinegar, mixed with the copper reek of fresh blood and the sour stink of fierce sweat soaking through wool. His stomach flips. Braun is screaming now, voice cracking, suppressing fire. Suppress! The MG-34 opens up again, hosing the tree line with frantic bursts. Tracers streak red into the white, snapping branches, kicking up geysers of snow. Every man who can fires Mausers, MP-40s, even a pistoled bullets whipping into emptiness. The forest answers with silence. Carl's bolt clicks empty. He fumbles for a fresh clip, hands shaking so badly the rounds scatter like teeth. One of the tracers must have started a small fire somewhere. He smells burning pine needles now, acrid and festive, like a Christmas tree set alight. And still the cracks come measured, patient, each one followed by a body dropping. Gefreiter Becker is hit next. The bullet takes him high in the shoulder, spins him like a puppet with cut strings. He lands on his back, screaming, legs bicycling in the snow. Carl sees the shock in his eyes, the moment the myth dies. Becker had bragged all the way from Warsaw that the Russians were subhuman, drunk cowards who ran at the first shot. Now he stares at the gray sky, mouth working soundlessly, realizing the lie. Carl feels it too. A cold, sick slide inside his chest. These are not the panicked mobs of propaganda newsreels. This is precision, discipline, patience greater than their own. The enemy is not fleeing. The enemy is hunting. Braun crawls to Carl again, face streaked with soot and snot. We have to pull back. We have to. Another crack. Braun's helmet jerks sideways, a neat hole punched just above the rim. He slumps across Carl's legs, instantly heavy, blood warm through the fabric. Carl stares at the body. Braun, 28 years old, father of two, always humming stupid marching songs, gone between one heartbeat and the next. The platoon is unraveling. Men are crawling rearward now, dragging wounded, leaving rifles behind. Someone is sobbing openly. The machine gun has fallen silent. The gunner lies draped over it, one eye staring blankly at the sky. Carl feels the doubt flood in like meltwater. Everything they were told, the racial superiority, the inevitable victory, the 1,000-year Reich, suddenly thin as the paper it was printed on. Out there, in the white silence, a single Russian, maybe a woman, maybe not, is dismantling an entire elite company with calm, methodical shots. He grabs Braun's MP-40, the metal scalding cold, and begins crawling backward, belly dragging through snow already pink in places. Behind him, the forest swallows the cries of the wounded. Ahead, the German lines feel impossibly far. The snow keeps falling, soft and relentless, covering blood, brass, and broken certainty alike. And somewhere out in the birch trunks, the invisible killer shifts position, slow, deliberate, already choosing the next man who dares to believe he is the hunter here. Carl crawls, dragging the MP40 through churned snow turned pink and brown. Every yard feels like a mile. His knees burn, lungs season the cold, but he keeps moving because stopping means dying. Behind him the forest erupts. A new sound tears the air. Russian submachine guns, the frantic, buzzing rasp of PPSH-41s, drums emptying in seconds. Red tracers whip overhead like angry hornets. The counterattack has come. Not just the sniper. The whole damned forest is alive with them. Carl risks a glance back. Figures in white padded jackets burst from the tree line, moving low and fast, closer than anyone thought possible. They have been there the whole time, hidden in snow holes, under branches, behind fallen logs, waiting for the sniper to bleed the Germans dry, to pin them, to break their nerve. Now they rise like ghosts in charge. The remnants of the platoon scramble to their feet. Some fire wildly, muzzle flashes strobing in the dusk. Others simply run. Carl sees Lieutenant Boss, always so composed, monocle glinting, throw down his pistol and sprint rearward, coat flapping like a broken wing. The sight punches the breath from Carl's chest. If Voss runs, it is over. A grenade detonates nearby, the crump muffled by snow, but the shockwave still slaps Carl's face. Clods of frozen earth rain down. Someone screams, a long, animal howl that cuts off abruptly. Carl keeps crawling. Snow fills his mouth, his nose. He tastes blood. He must have bitten his tongue. His mind races in frantic circles. I am going to die here. Not in a blaze of glory. Not charging a machine gun nest with a song on my lips. Just crawling through shit and snow while faceless men in white coats hunt me down. He thinks of his wife, Greta, waiting in Munich with the baby he has never seen. A girl, born in September. He has her photograph in his breast pocket, pressed against his heart. He wonders if the bullet will pass through it first. Another burst of PPSH fire stitches the ground beside him. Snow fountains up. He feels the heat of the rounds, hears the snap as they pass inches from his ear. He rolls into a shallow depression, a frozen rut left by some long-gone vehicle, and presses his body flat. The MP40 is empty. He never reloaded in the chaos. Useless weight. He drops it. All around, the world collapses. Men run past him, faces distorted with terror. One stumbles, clutching his belly where dark wetness spreads. He locks eyes with Carl for a second, pleading, accusing, then falls face down and does not move. The Russians are among them now. Bayonets flash. A German soldier rises to meet one, rifle raised like a spear. The Russian parries, lunges. The blade goes in under the ribs with a wet thunk. The German gasps, a sound like air escaping a punctured bellows, and folds around the steel. Carl watches it happen 10 meters away, frozen by the intimacy of it. No thunder of artillery, no heroic last stand. Just two exhausted men stabbing each other in the snow until one stops breathing. A boot crunches beside Carl's head. He looks up. A Russian soldier stands over him, young, cheeks windburned red, eyes bright with the savage joy of the hunter who has become the prey no longer. The PPSH barrel lowers, steady, aimed between Carl's eyes. Time stretches. Carl sees every detail, the frost on the Russian's eyelashes, the steam of his breath, the faint scar across one cheek. He smells the man, unwashed wool, tobacco, gun oil. The same smells Carl carries himself. In that endless second, everything the propaganda taught him crumbles. These are not subhumans, not drunken Asiatic hordes. This is a man, tired, cold, afraid once himself, now victorious. Carl's mind screams one clear thought, sharp as the sniper's bullet. We were wrong. About everything. The Russian's finger tightens on the trigger. Carl closes his eyes. He thinks of Greta's laugh, the warmth of her hand the last time he held it, the soft weight of the baby's blanket he kissed before leaving. He waits for the burst that will erase him. It does not come. A shout in Russian, harsh, commanding. The barrel lifts away. Rough hands grab Carl's collar, haul him upright. His legs buckle, but they hold him. Zip ties bite into his wrists, plastic, modern, anachronistic in this frozen hell. He opens his eyes. The Russian who spared him is already moving on, scanning for the next threat. Around them, the firing dies to sporadic cracks. The forest belongs to the white-coated figures now. German survivors, fewer than a dozen, stand in a dazed knot, hands raised, faces blank with the shock of still being alive. Carl looks back toward the tree line where the sniper began it all. Nothing moves there now, just snow settling on branches, erasing footprints, covering the dead. The invisible killer is gone. The damage is done. Karl stumbles forward as the Russians prod the prisoners rearward. Each step sinks deep into snow soaked with blood and melted fear. He feels the certainty drain out of him like blood from a wound he cannot staunch. The Reich will not last 1,000 years. It may not last another winter. And in the silence that follows victory, the only sound is the soft, relentless fall of snow over an empire already beginning to die. The guns fall silent first. One last PPSH drum clicks empty, echoes fading into the birch trunks like a door slamming in an empty house. Then the screams taper off, some cut short, others trailing into whimpers that the snow gently smothers. Even the wind seems to pause, holding its breath. Karl stumbles along with the other prisoners, a ragged column of 12 or 13 men prodded eastward by bayonets and barked commands. Their boots crunch in unison now, the only sound in a world gone suddenly, shockingly quiet. No artillery thunders in the distance. No aircraft drone overhead. Just the soft creak of leather, the wet rasp of exhausted breathing, and the occasional sob swallowed quickly before it can draw attention. The battlefield they leave behind is already erasing itself. Snow falls thicker now, fat flakes drifting down to cover the churned earth, the scattered helmets, the bodies twisted at unnatural angles. Blood freezes into dark roses that the white veil will soon hide completely. By morning, the forest will look untouched again, pure, indifferent, as if no men ever bled here. Karl glances back once. He sees the shape of Unteroffizier Braun half buried already, one arm still flung out in that futile reach. Nearby lies young Muller, face down exactly where he fell, as though sleeping off a long march. The machine-gun crew drapes the MG-34 like a broken family clustered around a hearth gone cold. None of them will rise again. Of the 43 men who entered the tree line at dusk, fewer than a third walk out now. The rest remain food for crows that have not yet arrived, names that will soon be scribbled on casualty lists and mailed to mothers who will never quite believe the terse official words. The Russians march them through the night, deeper into the endless white. Karl's legs move without thought, numbness spreading from toes upward. Frostbite has begun its quiet work. He feels the tissue dying, painless for now, treacherous. The guards offer no food, no water, only the occasional shove when someone stumbles. One prisoner, Gefreiter Becker, shoulder crudely bandaged with a torn strip of greatcoat, collapses near dawn. A guard raises his rifle but Karl looks away. The dull thud that follows is soft, almost polite. Becker does not rise. No one protests. There is no strength left for it. They reach a collecting point by midday, a frozen village of charred logs and shell craters, ringed by barbed wire hastily strung between blackened stumps. Hundreds of Germans already huddle their gray faces, hollow eyes, uniforms stiff with ice. Karl is shoved inside with the others. The gate clangs shut. Somewhere a harmonica plays a halting version of Lily Marlene, the notes thin and wavering, until a guard shouts it silent. Days blur into weeks. Interrogations, marches, cattle cars that smell of cattle and worse. Karl survives, barely. Gangrene claims 3 toes, but a Russian medic saws them off with vodka for anesthetic and a cigarette for consolation. He lives through the camps, through the slow starvation of 1943, through the long trudge home in 1949 when the war has already devoured itself. But something inside him never thaws. Years later, an old man in Munich will sometimes wake at night, heart pounding, tasting pine and cordite on his tongue. He will sit at the kitchen table in the dark, staring at nothing, remembering the silence that followed the noise, the moment when the myth of invincibility died in the snow and left only men, cold and small and terribly, irrevocably mortal. Because that is the true voice of war, not the roar of guns or the thunder of armies, but the hush afterward, when the snow keeps falling and the world forgets you were ever there at all.